I had been back from the underground weapons depot for 23 minutes when General Marcus Thorne ordered me into the operations room. I had not showered. Gray dust covered my uniform. Dried blood stained my left sleeve, and the skin across my knuckles had split beneath my gloves. Most of the blood belonged to a civilian contractor whose leg had been trapped under a launch system frame. Staff Sergeant Darius Cole followed me through the door, his right hand wrapped in gauze. "You're supposed to be in medical," I told him. "So are you, Captain. I gave you an order, and General Thorne gave me one before you did." Darius pointed toward the main screen. A satellite image showed a mountain cut open by white scars. Red markers flashed over the buried structure beneath it. General Thorne stood with both hands braced against the conference table. "Earthquake hit an abandoned military communications complex in Alaska," he said. The main collapse came 6 minutes later. Avalanche sealed the surface entrances. "How many inside?" 43 confirmed survivors. "Possibly more." "Ventilation?" "All-fine." "Backup shafts?" "Blocked or compromised." I stepped closer to the screen. A structural diagram appeared beside the satellite image. The shape of the underground facility looked familiar. Too familiar. Marcus watched my face. Cold War pressure seal system. Same generation as the Nevada site your unit trained on last year. Darius swore under his breath. I ignored him. Fuel storage? Experimental compound left in 2 lower chambers. Records say it was removed in 1993. Sensors say the records were wrong. How bad? Leak in progress. Local responders can't drill without risking ignition. Civilian rescue teams don't have the plans or equipment to enter through the sealed utility network. Marcus straightened. Your unit is the only one in the country that has worked on this system. I looked at the survivor list displayed on another monitor. The production company's name came first, then the film title, then 2 names written in bold because someone believed celebrity status mattered to a collapsing mountain. Fifienahart, Blake Sterling. Darius saw them at the same time. His jaw tightened. "You have got to be kidding me." A communications specialist raised her hand. "Sir, we have a weak satellite connection from inside." "Put it through," Marcus said. The screen flickered. A woman appeared through static. Her hair was tangled against one side of her face. Blood ran from her temple to her jaw. She held a damaged satellite terminal with both hands while people coughed behind her. My wife stared at the camera. Then she saw me. Her lips parted, but no sound came out at first. "Ronan?" I did not answer as her husband. "State the number of conscious survivors." She blinked. "Ronan." "I." "Number of conscious survivors." "Vivian." Her eyes moved away from me. 38. 5 are unconscious or barely responsive. 2 have serious leg injuries. 1 woman may have internal bleeding. How many oxygen cylinders? 6. But one of them is almost empty. Water? Enough for maybe a day if we ration it. Any fuel odor? A few people said they smelled something sweet near the North Passage. Blake Sterling stepped into view, even covered in dust. He looked like a man expecting someone to find his best angle. Part of his military-style costume still hung from his shoulders. He grabbed the terminal from Vivian. "You need to send people in immediately." I looked at him without speaking. Blake leaned toward the camera. "Did you hear me? We have injured civilians down here. Your army. This is your responsibility." Darius shifted beside me. Marcus gave him one warning look. I kept my eyes on Blake. "I know my responsibility." "Then stop wasting time asking questions." "I'm asking questions because opening the wrong door could poison everyone in that room." Blake's mouth twisted. "We don't have time for your attitude." "This isn't attitude. It's command." He looked behind him, aware that people were listening. I continued. "From this moment on, you will close your mouth unless I ask you a direct question. You will not move anyone, open anything, or touch any part of that facility without my order." His face hardened. "You don't get to talk to me like that." "I do now." Vivian reached for the terminal. Blake resisted for a second before letting her take it. She held it against her chest. "Ronan, please." There had been a time when that word from her could pull me across a continent. Now I heard only a trapped civilian trying to reach a rescue commander. "Move everyone away from the North Passage," I said. "Seal the gaps with plastic. Vet fabric. Wardrobe bags. Anything airtight. Keep the injured low. Do not use open flames. Do not start a vehicle. Do not operate damaged electrical equipment." Vivian nodded quickly. "How long until you get here?" Marcus looked at me. I studied the route through the frozen drainage system. One entrance remained visible beneath 20 feet of snow and fractured ice. We're working on entry. Her expression changed. She understood what I had not said. The route might fail. The fuel might ignite. We might arrive too late. 6 weeks earlier, Vivian had looked into a camera and told millions of people I lacked the courage to stand beside a real man. Now the only team capable of reaching her was mine. The strange part was that I felt no satisfaction, only calculation, oxygen consumption, structural load, toxic exposure, travel time, and beneath all of that, one quiet certainty: even if I brought Vivian out alive, I was not bringing our marriage out with her. 6 weeks earlier, I returned home at 2 in the morning with hydraulic fluid on my boots. The mission had taken 41 hours. A damaged underground ammunition facility outside Fort Redstone had suffered a fire, partial collapse, and fuel line rupture. 3 contractors were trapped in a maintenance section. Darius and I had spent the final 4 hours cutting through a warped blast door while the ceiling shifted above us. When I entered the kitchen, every light was on. Vivian sat at the counter in a silver dress, scrolling through her phone. She looked at me, then at the mud I had tracked across the floor. "You couldn't use the garage entrance? Door jammed. So you walked across imported limestone in those boots?" I looked down. "Sorry." She gave a humorless laugh. "That's all you ever say." I pulled off my gloves. The skin beneath them was swollen and torn. Vivian glanced at my hands, but her expression did not soften. "You missed the premiere dinner. I told you I was called in. You texted me 3 words. Emergency. Don't wait." "Exactly." She stood and folded her arms. "No explanation. No apology. No indication that your wife mattered. Someone was trapped." She shook her head. "There is always someone trapped. That's the job." "No, Ronan. It's the excuse. You set the here." 7 years earlier, she had gripped my uniform with both hands while paramedics tried to pull her away from me. "He saved me." She had screamed at the news cameras. "He's the real hero." Back then, she had been an actress with 3 lines in a cable drama and $200 in her checking account. Now her face covered billboards from Los Angeles to New York. She looked at my faded uniform as if it embarrassed her. "My publicist asked where you were," she said. "What did you tell her?" "That you were busy repairing equipment." I set my gloves on the counter. "That isn't what I do." "Then tell me what you do." "You know I can't." "There it is." She pointed at me. The magic phrase. "Classified. Confidential. Can't discuss it." Do you realize how convenient that sounds? It isn't convenient for anyone. It is for you. You disappear whenever you want and come home expecting me to accept whatever mood you bring through the door. I don't disappear whenever I want. You missed my birthday last year. I was deployed. You missed our anniversary. There was a chemical leak. You didn't come to the Golden Globe ceremony. Amina collapsed. She laughed sharply. Do you hear yourself? You always have a disaster ready. I looked at her for several seconds. I don't prepare them in advance. Vivian. She turned away. Blake would have come. There it was. Her former husband had been appearing more often in our arguments. Blake would have attended. Blake understood publicity. Blake knew how to make a woman feel protected. Blake's version of danger involved stunt coordinators, rehearsals, and production insurance. Mine came with casualty tags. You're shooting with him again. I said. He's my co-star. He's also the man you compare me to whenever you're angry. Because he shows up. I picked up my gloves. Vivian's voice followed me toward the hallway. We have a premiere in 3 days. Don't come. I stopped. She adjusted one of her diamond earrings without looking at me. The studio wants the event to feel elegant. You hate cameras anyway. I hate pretending. Then you should understand why you don't belong there. I went upstairs without answering. That was the last night I slept in our bedroom. 3 days later, I watched the premiere interview from the unit locker room. Darius had found the live stream. 2 other soldiers stood behind him, their faces growing harder with every question. Blake stood beside Vivian in a tailored black tuxedo. A reporter asked him about an accident on set. Blake smiled modestly. A lighting rig caught fire. I didn't think. I just ran in and pulled a crew member out. I knew the story. Everyone did after his team fed it to entertainment outlets for a month. The fire had been contained before Blake approached. Safety crews had cleared the structure. The rescued crew member had suffered a sprained wrist. Vivian touched Blake's arm. That's who he is, she said. He runs toward danger. The reporter grinned. The bravest man you know? Vivian looked up at Blake with an expression she had not given me in years. Absolutely. Another reporter raised her microphone. Your husband serves in the army. Wouldn't you call him a hero too? Vivian smiled. Not warmly. Ronan mostly stays on base repairing equipment. Darius slowly lowered the phone. Vivian continued. We've been married 6 years, and I don't think he's managed to spend one complete birthday with me. Blake placed a hand near her waist. She did not move away. Real courage means standing up and protecting people. She said, it doesn't mean disappearing whenever life gets difficult and hiding behind classified assignments. The reporter's eyebrows rose. Vivian knew exactly what she was doing. Blake has the courage of a real man. She added, Ronan doesn't even have the courage to face a camera. The locker room fell silent. Darius threw the phone against a metal bench. It bounced to the floor. The screen cracked, but still playing. 7 years ago, you carried her out of a landslide. He said, last year, you stayed behind in a collapse to shut off a fuel valve for us. She knows that. Pick up your phone. Sir. Pick it up. His eyes were red when he bent down. She called you a coward. We don't wear this uniform so strangers will praise us online. This isn't about praise. Darius stepped closer. She's using your silence against you. I opened my locker. Inside was the spare uniform I kept for moments when the one on my body was too damaged to take home. I said, let it go. Darius clenched his jaw, but obeyed. I thought Vivian would wake up the next morning, see what she had caused, and correct it. Instead, she posted a video. She sat alone in our Los Angeles living room, wearing no jewelry and barely any makeup. The performance was designed to look unplanned. For years, she began. I protected my husband's privacy. I watched from General Thorne's office. Vivian looked into the camera with tears gathered carefully along her lower lashes. Ronan disappears for days or weeks. When he comes home, he refuses to explain where he has been. I've lived with emotional distance, silence, and constant uncertainty. She pressed her fingers to her lips. I used to believe silence meant strength. Now I wonder if it was simply avoidance. Marcus stood beside the window, his arms crossed. Vivian implied I exaggerated the importance of my assignments. She suggested I use secrecy to escape responsibility. She called Blake the person who was truly willing to protect her. By noon, strangers were flooding the Army's public accounts. By evening, they had found photographs of our base gates. The next morning, someone posted the neighborhood where Darius's wife and infant daughter lived. Marcus turned from the window. I respected your decision not to answer when this was about your marriage. I said nothing. It isn't about your marriage anymore. I'm not asking the Army to defend me. No. He walked to the desk. You're asking every person under your command to absorb the consequences of your wife's lies. My jaw tightened. She doesn't know what we do. She knows enough not to claim you do nothing. He placed a folder in front of me. Inside were proposed declassified clips, partial citations, and rescue records cleared for release. I won't expose active operations, Marcus said, but I will protect this unit. I looked at the wedding ring on my left hand. Vivian had once kissed that ring before every deployment. Now she had turned it into evidence that I was living off her success. I pulled it free. The skin beneath it was pale. Marcus watched me set it beside the folder. Do what you need to do, I said. He glanced at the ring. And what are you going to do? I took out my phone and searched for the number of a military divorce attorney recommended by another officer. For the first time in 6 years, I said, I'm going to stop waiting for my wife to remember who I am. The Army released its statement at 9 the next morning. I was in the equipment bay inspecting damaged respirators when every phone in the room began vibrating. Darius pulled his out first. They posted it. I kept checking the seal on a breathing mask, then stopped staring at your phone and finished the inventory. You should see this. Sir, I know what's in it. No, you know what the Army approved. You don't know what General Thorne said. He turned the screen toward me. Marcus stood behind a plain podium in his service uniform. No dramatic music. No editi lighting. No publicity team had arranged soldiers behind him to make the statement look important. He read my name, rank, and assignment. Then the screen cut to declassified footage. In the first clip, rain hammered the entrance of a collapsing tunnel. I was visible for less than 10 seconds, dragging an injured soldier by the straps of his body armor. In another, I knelt beside an unconscious engineer during a chemical leak and removed my own respirator. Darius pointed at the screen. That was Louisiana. I remember. You stopped breathing before you reached the decontamination line. I remember that too. The final clip showed floodwater rising inside an underground facility. 6 workers climbed into a rescue vehicle while I remained behind. Checking the last chamber, Marcus returned to the screen. Captain Ashford's silence does not mean he has nothing to say. He said, "It means a professional soldier does not use another person's disaster to earn applause." The room around me became quiet. Marcus continued, "Some people portray heroes in films. Others wash the blood and mud from their uniforms and return to work the next morning." Darius looked at me. "Tell me you didn't enjoy that part." "I didn't." He smiled. "I did." By noon, the story no longer belonged to Vivian's publicity team. A retired mine supervisor posted a video explaining how I had spent 11 hours underground after civilian rescuers were ordered out. A chemical engineer described waking in a hospital and learning that the breathing mask on his face had been mine. The widow of a soldier I had failed to save wrote that I had stayed with her husband until the end and called her personally afterward. That one was harder to read than the insults. Praise did not erase the people we lost. It only reminded me that strangers saw the clean ending while we remembered the bodies. Then someone found the Utah footage. Darius entered my office without knocking. "You need to see this." "I'm working." "Not anymore." He placed his phone on my desk. The video was 7 years old. The resolution was poor, but I recognized the crushed production vehicle immediately. A younger version of me stumbled through dust with Vivian in my arms. Blood covered the side of my face. My right shoulder had already begun to fail, and one of my broken ribs pressed against my lung every time I moved. Vivian clung to my uniform while paramedics reached for her. "He saved me," she screamed. "He's the real hero." The video cut to her premiere interview. Ronan doesn't even have the courage to face a camera. Then it cut back to her crying in my arms. "He saved me." The clip had already passed 20 million views. Darius leaned against the desk. She erased the story, and the internet handed it back to her. I switched off the screen. People will move on. Her sponsors aren't moving on. He was right. 2 luxury brands suspended their campaigns with Vivian. A veterans organization canceled her appearance at a charity event. Ticket pre-sales for her new movie dropped within 48 hours. Blake's history came under review too. Stunt coordinators began questioning his rescue stories. Old footage showed safety crews standing just outside the camera frame during several of his so-called dangerous demonstrations. The public wanted heroes. It had simply confused confidence with courage. Vivian called 17 times. I answered none of them. On the 18th call, she left a message. "Ronan, this is destroying everything. We need to talk before our lawyers turn this into a war." My lawyer had already filed the initial petition. There was nothing left to discuss. That evening, the security camera at my house alerted me to 3 visitors. Vivian stood at the door with Blake and her publicist, Lydia Cross. I considered ignoring them. Then Blake looked directly into the camera and pressed the bell again. I opened the door. Vivian pushed past me before I invited her inside. She wore dark glasses, though the sun had already gone down. "You changed the gate code." "Yes. This is my home. It's jointly owned. That doesn't make it a press room." Lydia entered behind her, holding a tablet and 2 folders. Blake came last. He looked around the living room with a faint smile. "So this is where the mysterious Captain Ashford hides." I closed the door. "No cameras?" Lydia frowned. "Excuse me? Your people filmed Vivian's last personal confession in this room. I assumed you brought a crew." Vivian removed her glasses. Her eyes were swollen, but I could not tell whether she had been crying or whether a makeup artist had created the effect. "This isn't funny." I wasn't joking. She stepped closer. "You need to release a statement." "No, you haven't even heard what it says." "I don't need to." Lydia opened one folder. "It's simple. You say Vivian misunderstood the nature of your assignments. You acknowledge that military life caused strain in the marriage. And you asked the public to stop attacking her. She didn't misunderstand." Vivian's mouth tightened. "Ronan, she invented a version that helped her movie. That is not fair. You told millions of people I probably wasn't doing important work." I said I didn't know what you were doing. "No. You said my silence was an excuse." Lydia lifted a hand. "We're not here to debate wording." I looked at her. "Then you came to the wrong house." Blake stepped between us. "You could stop all this with one interview." The truth already stopped it. His jaw flexed. "The army humiliated her." "The army corrected her." Vivian stared at me. "You let General Thorne release those videos. He released material to protect soldiers whose families were being identified online. You could have warned me. You warned me on a red carpet?" She flinched. Blake moved closer. She was lonely. You vanished whenever she needed you. People were trapped whenever she needed me. There's always a better excuse with you. I studied him. He had played commandos, firefighters, federal agents, and special operators. He knew how to lower his voice and hold eye contact. It worked on people who believed danger followed a script. You perform danger after professionals make it safe. I said, don't lecture me about the people waiting behind locked doors. His smile disappeared. At least I show up for her. You showed up when she had cameras. Vivian stepped between us. Stop it, both of you. I looked at her. There are no both of us. Her face went still. Lydia glanced at the papers in her hand. Suddenly uncomfortable. Vivian whispered, what does that mean? I walked to the kitchen counter and picked up the envelope my attorney had delivered that afternoon. I held it out. She did not take it. What is that? You know what it is. Her hand began to shake. Blake looked over her shoulder. Divorce papers? Vivian turned on him. Be quiet. Then she faced me again. You filed without speaking to me? You spoke to the country first. I was angry. You were strategic. Her eyes filled. I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. You build a campaign. Lydia lowered the folders. Vivian finally took the envelope. You don't throw away 6 years because of one interview. No. I'm ending 6 years because the interview showed me what the marriage had become. She pressed the papers against her chest. Do you still love me? It was the question she expected to control the room. I did not answer it. My attorney's contact information is inside. Her expression collapsed. Blake reached for her shoulder. She jerked away from him. Don't touch me. For 1 second, I saw panic instead of pride. Ronan, I can fix this. You can fix your statement. You can fix your contract. You can probably fix your career. I opened the front door. You can't fix what you chose to believe about me. Lydia left first. Blake paused beside me. You think a uniform makes you better than everyone else? No. I met his eyes. But I know the difference between wearing one and playing dress up. His face reddened, but Vivian called his name sharply from the driveway. He followed her out. Vivian stood beside the car with the divorce papers still in her hand. I'll call you tomorrow. I closed the door. She did call. I blocked the number. The studio announced the Alaska production 2 weeks later. The press release described it as an authentic survival thriller filmed under real extreme conditions. Blake would climb ice walls, drive military snow vehicles, and perform several underground rescue sequences without a traditional stunt double. Vivian would play an engineer trapped in an abandoned defense facility. Darius read the announcement aloud during lunch. So she insults an army engineer. And now she's playing one. She's an actress. That's the kindest thing you've said about her all month. It wasn't a compliment. The studio's plan was obvious. They needed to replace the story of a fake hero and an ungrateful wife with images of courage, endurance, and discipline. Behind-the-scenes footage appeared almost daily. Blake drove a snowcat across prepared terrain and told the camera, you can't fake confidence in a place like this. He climbed an ice wall with 2 safety lines digitally removed from promotional photographs. He posed beside old military equipment and spoke about respecting the men who had served there. Vivian appeared quieter. In one interview, a reporter asked whether the film was meant to repair her reputation. She forced a smile. I'm here to work, not rewrite the past. But rewriting the past was exactly why they were there. Before leaving Los Angeles, she sent me one final email. When this is over, I hope we can talk without attorneys. I replied once. The attorneys are the only part of our marriage still communicating honestly. She did not answer. 3 weeks into production, Alaska officials issued a warning about unstable snowpack and a series of minor tremors. The production did not stop. A consulting engineer named Calvin Ross recommended closing the northern maintenance tunnels beneath the base, according to the report later sent to Military Rescue Command. Blake objected in front of the producers. That section looks better on camera, he said. Calvin crossed his arms. It also shows stress fractures. We're shooting for 20 minutes. The mountain doesn't care about your schedule. Blake smiled toward the documentary camera. Fear keeps people alive. Courage gets them out. Calvin walked off the set. The producers kept filming. At 4:17 the next afternoon, an earthquake struck. The first tremor knocked out the primary power. The second collapsed 2 underground corridors. The avalanche arrived 6 minutes later and buried the main exits under ice, rock, and concrete. The emergency ventilation system failed. Then sensors detected a leak from a fuel chamber that official records claimed had been empty for 30 years. Local rescue teams reached the site, but could not enter. Drilling risked ignition. Helicopters could not land in the storm. 18 hours after the collapse, the Army received a weak satellite signal from inside the mountain. General Thorne called me into the operations room. When Vivian's face appeared on the screen, she looked at me as though the truth had finally found her. Blake grabbed the terminal and ordered me to send my team. I gave him one instruction: close your mouth and follow orders. After the connection ended, Marcus enlarged the structural map. The surface shafts are gone, he said. Utility tunnel is crushed. That leaves the drainage line. Darius studied the measurements. 27 inches at the widest point, 24 near the filtration bend. I corrected. Marcus looked at me. The pipe is frozen. Another tremor could close it with your team inside. I checked the fuel readings, survivor oxygen levels, an estimated travel time. How long until the storm gets worse? Less than 2 hours. I reached for my helmet. Darius did the same. Marcus blocked the equipment case with one hand. Ronan, this is not personal. I know. Do you? I tightened the strap beneath my chin. There are 43 people under that mountain. One of them tried to destroy your life. I lifted the case. Then she's fortunate my job has never depended on whether I like the person waiting to be rescued. The alarm sounded across the bay. My unit began moving. Behind us, the screen flickered back to life. Vivian's voice broke through the static. Ronan, the air is getting worse. I did not look back. Tell them to hold position. I said, we're coming. The drainage pipe was 27 inches wide at the entrance, 6 feet inside. The ice reduced it to 24. I lay flat on my stomach and pushed my equipment case ahead of me with both forearms. My helmet scraped against the metal every time I lifted my head. Darius crawled behind me. Still think this beats medical leave? I asked. His injured hand dragged against the pipe. Ask me when we're out. That wasn't an answer. It's the answer you'd give. I checked the air monitor attached to my wrist. Oxygen was low but stable. No fuel vapor yet. Behind Darius came Sergeant First Class Naomi Brooks, our structural specialist. Then 3 more soldiers carrying compact supports, sealing foam, breathing equipment, and cutting tools. General Thorne's voice broke through my headset. Alpha 1, tremor activity increasing. Copy. Estimated window before the storm blocks surface support is 90 minutes. Then stop talking to me until you have something I can use. Marcus paused. Good to hear marriage hasn't improved your manners. The line went quiet. Darius chuckled. General sounds worried. He should be. The pipe narrowed again. I removed my right shoulder pad and pushed it ahead. The old injury burned as I turned sideways through the bend. 7 years earlier, that shoulder had torn while I carried Vivian away from falling rock. Now it was pressed against frozen steel while I crawled toward her again. Darius's voice came from behind me. You thinking about her? I'm thinking about 43 people losing oxygen. That wasn't my question. It's the only answer that matters in here. We reached the filtration chamber 18 minutes later. The grate had buckled inward. I used a compact spreader while Naomi braced the surrounding frame. Pressure building above us. She said, how long? If the ceiling shifts, we won't have time to discuss it. Good. I hate meetings. The grate tore free. I pulled myself into the chamber and raised my monitor. A warning light flashed. Fuel vapor. I said, low concentration. Darius climbed out after me and stared at the reading. That's from 2 levels down, which means the ventilation ducts are carrying it up. Naomi pointed toward a damaged service door. We sealed this chamber before advancing. We worked without speaking. Every movement had a purpose. Foam around the pipe opening. Temporary barrier across the ventilation grate. Chemical filters locked into place. No cameras. No speeches. No one asking which angle made courage look better. The satellite relay connected to the survivors. Vivian's voice came through first. Ronan, report. People are getting headaches. 2 are vomiting. The girl with the breathing problem is worse. Did you seal the northern passage? We're trying. A man shouted behind her. Then Blake's voice cut in. We should move toward the eastern stairs. I checked the production map. I stopped fastening a support clamp. You were told to hold position. The air is getting worse. The eastern stairs lead toward the fuel control level. The map shows a surface access corridor. The map was made for your camera crew. Mine was made by the Army. Blake raised his voice. You're not down here. Darius looked at me. I answered calmly. I'm inside the filtration chamber, 200 yards from the main fuel line. Silence followed. Then Vivian said, "You're already inside?" "Yes." Blake recovered quickly. "Then come directly to us. We shut down the leak first. We have injured people. You'll have dead people if the vapor ignites. You're choosing machinery over civilians. I'm choosing the only sequence that keeps the civilians alive." A younger woman began coughing near the terminal. Vivian spoke more sharply. "Blake, stop arguing." He sounded offended. "I'm trying to get us out." "No, you're trying to sound like you know more than he does." "Whose side are you on?" Vivian hesitated. Then her voice hardened. "The side of the person who knows what he's doing." Darius glanced at me again. I ignored him. "Vivian, move everyone south. Use wardrobe bags, plastic covers, vet clothing, and tape to close the gaps around the shelter door. We've already started. Keep injured people low. Give oxygen only to those who medically need it." Blake interrupted. "We should reserve at least 2 cylinders." "For whom?" "For the people capable of leading the group out." Darius's eyebrows rose. I asked, "Who did you have in mind?" Blake did not answer immediately. Vivian did it for him, himself, and me. A man shouted in the background, "Are you serious?" Another voice followed. "My assistant can barely breathe." Blake snapped. "Everyone calm down. The studio needs us alive. If something happens to the leads, this entire situation becomes..." "Becomes what?" Vivian demanded. "More expensive?" "That isn't what I said." "It's exactly what you said." The satellite line filled with arguing. I raised my voice once. Everyone stop. The noise died. "Vivian, give 1 cylinder to the person with breathing distress. Keep the others with the injured." "Blake does not control supplies." Blake laughed without humor. "You think you control everything because you have a radio?" "No. I control this operation because I understand the building you helped collapse." He went silent. I cut the connection. Naomi looked toward the lower corridor. Fuel readings climbing. "Move." The control chamber door had folded against its frame. Darius placed the hydraulic cutter along the lock. I stopped him. "Too much heat." He withdrew it. Naomi examined the hinges. "Manual spread only." We forced the door apart 1 inch at a time. The air monitor began screaming. Inside, an old pipe had split near the main valve. A support assembly had fallen across the shutoff wheel. Liquid dripped onto the concrete beneath it. Darius stared at the twisted metal. "We need to lift the frame." "No, it'll shift the ceiling." Naomi ran a laser across the damaged supports. "She's right. Load is transferring through that beam. Move it, and this chamber comes down." I knelt beside the pipe. "There's space underneath." Darius shook his head immediately. "No." I removed my equipment harness. "Captain, the clearance is 18 inches. 17 near the valve. You're not fitting under that." "I don't need to fit comfortably." He blocked me. "You're the commander. That means I decide who crawls under it. It doesn't mean you always volunteer first." "No. It means I send the person most likely to finish the job." His injured hand tightened into a fist. "I can turn the valve. You can barely close your hand." "I can still." "Darius." He stopped. I held his gaze. "If the support moves, Brooks pulls me out. You keep the route open." His jaw worked before he stepped aside. "Yes, sir." I slid beneath the frame. Concrete pressed against my chest. The damaged beam hung inches above my helmet. My right shoulder caught against the floor, and pain ran down my arm. Naomi's voice came through the headset. "Structure shifting 2 millimeters." I reached the valve. It did not move. "Manual wheel is jammed." Darius knelt near my boots. "Want the torque bar?" "No room." I locked both hands around the wheel and pulled. "Nothing." Naomi's voice sharpened. "For millimeters." "Captain, you have less than a minute." I changed position. My shoulder screamed. The wheel turned half an inch. Fuel sprayed across my sleeve. "Ronan," Marcus said through the radio. "Withdraw." "Busy." That was an order. "Then write me up." I pulled again. The wheel moved. Darius shouted. 30 seconds. The beam dropped against my helmet. For a moment, I could not move my right arm. I heard Vivian's old voice in my memory. "You're the only hero I'll ever need." Then the new one. "Ronan doesn't even have the courage to face a camera." Neither voice mattered. Only the valve. I braced one boot against the floor and forced the wheel around. The pipe shuddered. The spray weakened. Valve closing. Naomi shouted. The support above me cracked. Darius and Naomi grabbed my legs. "Pull." Darius yelled. They dragged me clear as the frame slammed into the floor. Dust filled the chamber. I rolled onto my side and checked the monitor. The fuel concentration was dropping. Darius crouched beside me. You good? My shoulder works. That wasn't my question. It's the answer you'd give. He helped me up. Then the mountain moved. The first jolt knocked Naomi against the wall. The second split the corridor behind us. The satellite relay erupted with screams. Vivian shouted my name. A deep collapse thundered through the base. Then the connection went dead. We reached the shelter section 12 minutes later. Blake came crawling through a broken opening toward us. His face was streaked with dust. One glove was missing. Thank God. He gasped. Get me out. Darius grabbed his vest. Where are the others? Behind me. How many? Blake looked over his shoulder. The passage collapsed. They're gone. A weak voice carried through the opening. Help. Blake froze. Darius's expression changed. You said they were gone. I thought they were. You heard them. The structure was failing. A man coughed beyond the debris. Then Vivian shouted. Ronan. Blake grabbed my arm. You can't go through there. There's no support. I looked at his hand until he released me. Who's trapped? Vivian. Mateo. 2 crew members. And an intern. Any injuries? Mateo can't walk. Darius examined the blood on Blake's boot. Whose blood? Blake glanced down. I don't know. A voice from the other side yelled. He kicked Mateo. Blake's face tightened. He grabbed me. I would have been trapped too. You left him? Darius asked. I made a survival decision. Darius stepped forward. I caught him by the vest. Not now. Blake pointed toward the route behind us. You found the exit. Take me back. We haven't established an exit route, but you came through. The pipe won't support civilian evacuation. We're creating a separate path. His breathing quickened. Then I'm going with your team. No. Do you know who I am? Darius gave a cold laugh. Yes. That's the problem. I signaled to Brooks. Secure him. Keep him away from equipment and oxygen. Blake's eyes widened. You can't detain me. You interfered with rescue instructions. Opened a contaminated passage. And abandoned injured people. I was trying to save lives. I looked toward the fractured corridor. Start with telling the truth about the ones you left behind. Naomi clipped him to a fixed safety line. He struggled once. Darius leaned close to him. Pull that line loose and I'll let the mountain deal with you. Blake stopped moving. The opening was less than 2 feet high. I pushed a portable support through first, then crawled after it. Marcus came over the radio. Structural scan shows continued movement. Assess and withdraw if the passage is unstable. It's unstable. Then withdraw. I said it was unstable. I didn't say it was closed. Ronan. Static swallowed the rest. I reached the far side. Mateo Ruiz lay against the wall. One leg bent beneath him. 2 crew members pressed fabric against a wound on his thigh. A young intern sat nearby with an oxygen mask over her face. Vivian held the cylinder. She looked up when my helmet light crossed her face. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. She was not the movie star from the premiere. She was the young actress from Utah again, bleeding. Terrified, waiting for someone else to enter the dangers she could not escape. Ronan, she whispered. I moved to Mateo. Can you feel your toes? He nodded through clenched teeth. Yeah, good. Don't move the leg. Vivian crawled closer. I thought you were dead when the connection cut. Check the cylinder pressure. She looked down quickly. 28%. Give it to the intern. Slow breaths. The girl tried to pull off the mask. Mrs. Hart needs it. Vivian pushed it back over her face. No. Keep it on. I examined the ceiling crack. We moved Mateo first. One of the crew members stared at the narrow opening. He won't fit. He will after we stabilize the leg and widen the lower edge. Vivian touched my sleeve. Ronan. I pulled my arm away to reach for the cutting tool. I know I don't have the right to ask you anything. Then don't. Her face tightened, but she continued. I called you a coward. I remember. I knew you couldn't defend yourself. I remember that too. Her voice broke. I let them turn you into a joke because I thought you'd stay quiet. I attached a brace to Mateo's leg. Hold this. Vivian took it with shaking hands. I made the whole country believe you were nothing. Yes. Tears cut through the dust on her face. Then why did you come back for me? I tightened the brace. Because you're still alive. She stared at me. There was no forgiveness in the answer. No hidden promise. Only duty. A sharp crack sounded above us. Naomi shouted through the opening. Captain, ceiling movement. You have 90 seconds. I clipped Mateo to the rescue line. Pull on my signal. Vivian grabbed my wrist. You go first. Mateo goes first. The passage could collapse. That's why the injured move now. She looked at the scar exposed beneath my torn shoulder pad. Her fingers loosened. You hurt that's saving me. 7 years ago. And you're using it to hold this tunnel open now. This isn't about us. The ceiling dropped half an inch. Dust struck my helmet. I shoved the portable support beneath the fractured beam and locked it into place. Pain tore through my shoulder. Vivian reached for me. I pushed her toward the opening. Move. I'm not leaving you. This is not a love story. Another crack split the concrete. I shouted in her face. Move. She crawled into the opening. Darius pulled Mateo through first, then the intern and the 2 crew members. Vivian reached the other side and turned back. I released the support. The passage dropped. For 1 second, I saw her reaching toward me. Then concrete came down between us. Concrete struck the back of my helmet and drove my face into the floor. My headset filled with static. For several seconds, I could not tell whether my eyes were open. Dust blocked my visor, and the weight across my legs made breathing difficult. I tried to move my right arm. Nothing happened. Then pain hit my shoulder hard enough to clear my head. Alpha 1 to Alpha Team. No response. I pressed the radio control again. Darius. Static cracked in my ear. A faint voice answered. Captain, I'm alive. Darius shouted something I could not understand. Other voices joined him. I looked down at the monitor on my wrist. The display was damaged, but the oxygen reading still worked. 17%. Fuel vapor was rising again, probably from residue inside the broken ventilation ducts. Do not reopen the collapsed passage, I said. Darius answered immediately. Negative. That wasn't a request. Then you shouldn't have made it sound like one. I pushed against the slab across my legs. It did not move. Get the civilians to the southern access corridor. We're getting you first. The support failed. Cutting from your side could bring the rest down. Naomi's voice came through. He's right. We need another route. Darius swore. I turned my helmet light toward the wall. A narrow gap had opened beside an old cable channel. It was too small for a person, but air moved through it. Somewhere beyond the concrete was another utility space. Brooks, check the original plans. Cable conduit west of my position. Paper moved over the radio. Stand by. My breathing became heavier. Vivian's voice came over Darius's open channel. Ronan, can you hear me? Yes. We're not leaving you. You're leaving this section now. No. My jaw tightened. Vivian, you spent years ignoring me when it mattered. Don't start doing it now. She fell silent. Darius said, that was cold. Sir, move them. Naomi returned. Cable conduit connects to an equipment chamber 12 feet west. There should be a maintenance panel on your side. Should be? The plans are from 1988. Best news I've had all day. I pulled the cutting tool from my belt with my left hand. My right arm remained trapped beneath my body. Every movement dragged my damaged shoulder against the concrete. I found the outline of the maintenance panel beneath layers of corrosion. Ronan, Marcus said through the radio. Surface seismic activity is increasing. You have 10 minutes before I order full withdrawal. You can order whatever you want. I can also have you sedated when you get out. Motivating. I began cutting. The tool shook in my left hand. Sparks fell onto my sleeve. The fuel monitor gave another warning. Captain, Naomi said, do not produce heat if vapor exceeds. I know the threshold. You're 1 point below it. Then I'll be finished before it climbs. Darius breathed into the microphone. You'd better be. The panel broke inward. Cold air struck my face. I reached through the opening and found empty space. Route confirmed. Naomi said, we're moving to the equipment chamber. I tried to pull myself forward. The slab across my leg shifted, but did not release. My shoulder gave a sharp pop. My vision went white. Ronan? Vivian's voice shook. What happened? Nothing useful. You're hurt. I was hurt before I entered. She began crying. I did this. No. The earthquake did this. If I hadn't come here, then 41 other people would still be trapped. 42. Blake shouted from somewhere behind her. Stop pretending he came for everyone equally. Darius's voice hardened. Sterling, one more word, and I tape your mouth shut. Blake laughed. He buried himself, trying to reach his wife. That's what happened. I pressed my forehead against the floor and forced my legs sideways. The slab moved half an inch. You still think this is about you? I said. Blake went quiet. I pulled again. My left boot came free. Then the right. I crawled through the maintenance opening using one arm. The equipment chamber shook around me. A steel cabinet fell, and struck the wall behind my head. "Ronan!" Vivian screamed. "I'm through." Darius let out a breath. "Beacon shows you 20 feet from us. Come through the west service door. Do not cut the main wall." "We're there." Metal groaned from the other side. Naomi forced the door inward with a spreader. Darius squeezed through before the opening was wide enough. He dropped beside me. His eyes moved from my shoulder to the blood on my uniform. "You look terrible. You looked worse in Nevada. That was because you left me under a generator." I came back. He put my left arm over his shoulders. "Yeah, you always do." Naomi entered behind him and checked my pupils. "You may have a concussion. I have 43 civilians. You have a fractured collarbone." I asked about the civilians. She stared at me for a second. 43 alive. Only then did I allow my weight to shift onto Darius. "Move." The southern access corridor led to a ventilation shaft wide enough for a controlled extraction. Surface crews drilled from outside after we confirmed the fuel valve was closed and the vapor concentration had dropped. The first civilian reached daylight 26 hours after the collapse. The injured went first. Mateo was carried out on a rigid litter. The intern followed with oxygen support. Vivian tried to remain behind until everyone else had gone. Darius stopped her near the ladder. "You're next." "I can help. You can climb. Ronan is still inside. He gave you an order." She looked toward me. I stood against the wall while Naomi tightened a temporary brace around my shoulder. Vivian took one step in my direction. "Please let me stay with you." "No." Her face twisted. "I'm not asking you to forgive me." "Good. I'm asking not to leave you injured in here." "You are delaying the line." She looked as though I had slapped her. Darius leaned closer to her. "He came back through a collapsing passage because you were alive. Don't turn that into permission to make this about your feelings." Vivian lowered her eyes. Then she climbed. Blake attempted to follow her. Naomi caught his harness. "You wait." His face changed. "Why?" "Because you're ambulatory and uninjured. I'm one of the leads." Naomi stared at him. The mountain didn't read the call sheet. Several crew members laughed despite their exhaustion. Blake's expression darkened. "You can't treat me like some criminal." Darius tapped the camera mounted on his helmet. "We'll let investigators decide what to call you." Blake looked at the camera for the first time. His confidence disappeared. "What did that record?" "Everything." He grabbed for it. Darius twisted his arm behind his back and drove him against the wall. Blake cried out. "I was under extreme stress." "So, was Mateo when you kicked him?" "I thought the tunnel was closing. You told us they were dead." "I made a mistake." Darius tightened his grip. "No, a mistake is taking the wrong corridor. You left people behind because they slowed you down." I stepped toward them. "Secure him." Darius clipped Blake's wrists to the front of his harness. Blake looked at me. "You're enjoying this." "No. You hated me before we came here. I didn't think about you enough to hate you." His mouth opened, but no answer came. I pointed toward the extraction line. "You'll leave after the injured and before my team. You expect me to thank you?" "I expect you to climb when ordered." The medics placed me on a stretcher the moment I reached the surface. I tried to sit up. A major pressed one hand against my chest. "Captain, stay down." Survivor count. 43 recovered. Team count. All 6 present. Fuel condition? Contained. Only then did I stop resisting. Marcus appeared beside the stretcher. Snow covered his shoulders. His expression was controlled, which meant he was furious. "You ignored 3 withdrawal orders. I completed the mission. You nearly died." "Not the same thing." He leaned closer. "When the doctor clears you, I'm going to decide whether to promote you or strangle you. Promotion sounds better for retention." He looked at my shoulder brace. "You may not return to field command. We'll discuss that after surgery." "We're discussing it now." "No, sir. You're talking. I'm developing hearing problems." Marcus almost smiled. Then Vivian pushed past a medic. "Ronan." She still wore a rescue blanket around her shoulders. Her lips were blue, and dried blood covered one side of her face. The medic tried to stop her. I raised my left hand. 30 seconds. She came closer. "I thought you were dead." "I wasn't. When the tunnel collapsed, I tried to go back." Darius told me. Her eyes searched my face. "You came for me twice." I knew what she wanted to hear. She wanted the rescue to mean our marriage had survived beneath the anger. It had not. "I came for 5 trapped civilians." Her lips trembled. "You knew I was one of them." "Yes." "Doesn't that mean anything?" "It means I knew the survivor list." A medic adjusted the oxygen line near my face. Vivian's shoulders dropped. "Can I come to the hospital?" "No." "Ronan, my attorney will contact yours." Her eyes closed. "Even after the mountain." She had not expected the divorce to remain real. The stretcher began moving. Vivian walked beside it for several steps. I'm sorry. I looked at the helicopter waiting beyond her. So am I. The helmet camera footage was reviewed before I left the hospital. Military investigators interviewed every survivor. State authorities opened a separate case into the production's safety violations. Blake's attorneys argued that none of the recordings should be released. Mateo's attorney disagreed. So did the production assistant, whose phone Blake had knocked away. Once criminal investigators cleared portions of the footage, the video reached the public. Millions watched Blake open the contaminated maintenance hatch after being ordered not to touch it. They watched him demand oxygen for himself and Vivian because the lead actors were supposedly more valuable. They watched him kick Mateo's hand away. They heard Mateo beg for help. Then Blake crawled toward my unit and claimed everyone behind him was dead. His attorney held a press conference. Mr. Sterling was suffering from oxygen deprivation. So, and extreme fear. A reporter shouted. Wasn't his entire career built on claiming he doesn't panic under extreme conditions? The attorney ended the conference 2 minutes later. Former stunt coordinators began talking. One explained that Blake's famous burning building rescue had been filmed after the fire was controlled. Another produced photographs of hidden safety cables during Blake's charity climbing event. A former producer admitted that his military survival show had allowed him to repeat challenges until the footage looked convincing. The man who sold courage for a living had finally faced danger without a stunt coordinator. His image did not survive. He was charged with reckless endangerment, assault, interference with emergency operations, and unauthorized handling of restricted equipment. The studio terminated his contract before the first court hearing. Vivian's consequences came more quietly. She lost 3 major endorsements. A studio recast her role in an upcoming franchise. Veterans groups refused to let her appear at fundraising events. 5 days after I left surgery, she held a press conference. Darius watched it from the chair beside my hospital bed. You want me to turn this off? No. Vivian stood alone at the podium. No publicist joined her. I lied about my husband, she said. Cameras clicked. She took a breath. 7 years ago, Ronan Ashford entered an active landslide and carried me out of a crushed vehicle. He suffered injuries that still affect him today. Darius looked at my immobilized shoulder. She finally remembered. Vivian continued. I minimized that rescue because the truth no longer fit the image I wanted to sell. Her voice broke, but she did not stop. I also knew Ronan could not publicly explain his assignments. I used his integrity against him. I implied that he was lazy, dishonest, emotionally absent, and cowardly. A reporter asked whether her team had planned the accusations. Yes, she said, and I approved them. Another asked about Blake. Vivian lowered her head. I had become emotionally involved with him. I wanted to believe he was the man his movies claimed he was. Darius muted the television. She's trying to save what's left of her career. Probably. You believe her apology? I believe she regrets the consequences. That's not what I asked. I looked at the dark screen. I believe she knows she lied. He waited. That still isn't the same as trust. Vivian visited 3 weeks later. She entered the rehabilitation room, carrying the signed divorce agreement. My right arm remained in a sling. The surgeon had repaired the collarbone, but the shoulder damage was worse than expected. She looked thinner. No makeup covered the exhaustion beneath her eyes. I signed everything, she said. I nodded toward the table. She set down the documents but did not leave. The doctor said you may never regain full strength. They say a lot of things before physical therapy. Does it hurt? Yes. She looked at my bare left hand. I thought you took the ring off for surgery. I removed it before Alaska. Her face went still. Before you knew I would need you. I knew the marriage was over before the mountain fell. She sat across from me. For several seconds, she stared at the floor. Then why did you risk your life to come back through that passage? Mateo couldn't walk. The intern was losing oxygen. 2 crew members were trapped. And me. And you. She raised her eyes. You would have done the same thing if Blake had been trapped? Yes. She flinched as though the answer hurt more than hatred. I kept thinking that you came because some part of you still loved me. Maybe some part of me always will. Hope appeared too quickly on her face. I continued. That doesn't mean I can be your husband. Her eyes filled. Is there anything I can do? You can tell the truth without using it as another campaign. I will. You can stop calling military families for photo opportunities. Her cheeks reddened. I canceled those appearances. Good. She reached toward my hand. then stopped before touching it. Can you forgive me? Eventually, she gave a broken laugh. That sounds more hopeful than I deserve. Forgiveness is not reconciliation. Her smile disappeared. One day, I may remember the woman who held my hand in Utah without thinking first about the woman who humiliated me at that premiere. I pushed the signed agreement toward her. But I will never build a life again with someone who needed the whole country to call me a hero before she could respect me. Vivian pressed her lips together. She signed the final page. When she stood, she looked at my shoulder. You saved my life twice. I did my job twice. She walked to the door. Before leaving, she turned. I really did love you. I know. That was the worst part. Love had been there. Respect had not. The door closed behind her. Our marriage ended without shouting, cameras, or applause. For once, it ended honestly. My shoulder kept me away from field operations for 8 months. During that time, the Alaska investigation exposed a problem larger than one reckless film production. The country had skilled mine rescue teams, military engineers, firefighters, chemical response units, and disaster medical personnel, but no permanent center trained to combine them for complex underground incidents. Marcus placed a proposal on my desk. Joint Engineering Rescue Center. He said, military and civilian training, collapsed mines, industrial facilities, earthquakes, hazardous underground systems. I turned the pages. Who wrote this? You did. I wrote 3 pages after surgery. You complained for 3 pages. My staff turned it into a proposal. At the end was a promotion recommendation. I looked up. Colonel? Lieutenant Colonel. Still excessive. You can decline. I didn't say that. Marcus smiled. Darius became one of the center's senior instructors. Naomi ran structural training. We built mock tunnels, damaged industrial chambers, flooded utility spaces, and chemical leak simulations. At the opening ceremony, a senator introduced me as an American hero. When I reached the podium, I moved the prepared speech aside. Hero is a useful word in movies. I told the trainees, in our work, preparation matters more. Discipline matters more. Trust matters more. I looked toward the concrete training tunnel behind them. When everyone outside is running away from danger, someone has to know how to walk into it without making the situation worse. Darius stood beside the first class of recruits. He grinned. I added, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is follow instructions and keep your mouth shut. The trainees laughed. Darius looked toward Blake's empty place in the world and laughed harder. Years later, Vivian's career partially recovered. She never returned to the position she once held, but she continued acting in smaller films. She also began supporting organizations that helped military families during classified deployments. At first, people accused her of rebuilding her image. Maybe she was, but she stopped bringing cameras. She never used my name. One afternoon, Darius walked into my office holding his phone. You see the interview? No. You're in it. Then I definitely don't want to see it. He played the clip anyway. Vivian sat across from a late-night interviewer. Her hair had begun to show a few strands of gray. The interviewer asked, after everything that happened in Alaska, who would you call the bravest person you've ever known? Vivian remained silent for several seconds. Then she answered, a man I once called a coward. The audience became quiet. When everyone else was trying to escape, he was the first person walking into the dark. Darius stopped the video. She finally told the truth. I tightened the strap on a trainee's respirator lying across my desk. She told it when it no longer cost her anything. You glad she understands now? The training alarm sounded outside. A new team gathered at the tunnel entrance. I picked up my helmet. No. Darius followed me into the hall. I'm glad I don't need her to. The trainees waited for my command. Beyond them, the concrete tunnel was dark. There were no cameras inside, no red carpet, no audience waiting to decide which of us looked heroic. Only a simulated collapse, injured volunteers, and a clock already counting down. I lowered my visor. Team ready? Ready. Sir. I pointed toward the entrance. Then move. We walked into the darkness. Not to save my reputation. Not to prove Vivian wrong. Not because anyone would thank us afterward. We entered because people were waiting on the other side. That had always been enough.